Love it or hate it, Dragon Ball Daima is making some pretty big changes to the lore of the overall Dragon Ball universe. And not only that, but Majin Duu and Majin Duu are coming out to play. Powerful Nerdcast assemble! Stay dandy, baby. Oh, that's right. Dragon Ball Daima episode 10 and 11 are really starting to shake things up. I think that's been my favorite thing about Dragon Ball Daima thus far, is that they're really playing with the overall lore of the Dragon Ball universe. And whether you're a fan of retcons or not, you have to admit, it's actually kind of interesting. It also really helps that both of these episodes had some of the best action that we have seen from the entire series thus far. But to go along with that action, not only do we have the introduction of some brand new villainous characters in the forms of Majin Duu and Majin Duu, but we also get to learn that what we thought we knew about the Dragon Ball universe might not be the actual truth itself. So let's talk about some of the highlights. First and foremost, episode 10 of Dragon Ball Daima got me really hyped because we were finally going to see Majin Duu in action. And guess what? He's a big fat joke character. There's really nothing special about him. And this is a little disappointing, I do have to admit, because I was really excited to see a brand new form of Majin Buu in action. And while he certainly carries a lot of the personality of Kid Buu, he certainly doesn't have the muscle. He goes up against Tamagami 1 and pretty much gets his ass handed to him the entire fight, to the point where he actually has to run away with his tail between his legs, not only disappointing his creator Arinsu, but also making the hilarious declaration that while he might not be a great fighter, he could probably be a great secretary, at least go to get her groceries and stuff. It's kind of a funny subversion of expectations for this character, but expected from a show like Dragon Ball Daima, which seems to be drawing a lot of its inspiration from the original Dragon Ball anime and manga. And so with that, it looks like Arinsu is going back to the drawing board with the Witch Marba to create a brand new Majin character, but we'll get to that when we talk about episode 11 a little bit. Really, the rest of this episode is all about Goku joining up with his companions, Vegeta, Bulma, Piccolo, and of course, the amazing new character, Hybis, who slowly but surely with every episode is becoming my favorite character. This guy is just really fun to watch. Also, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention this because last time I didn't even bring it up, but it's very obvious that Hybis seems to have that weird, mysterious Demon Realm third eye that he's wearing as a belt. Again, I have a feeling this is mostly going to be played as some sort of joke when it is officially revealed that Goma finds out that this weird, goofy, aloof character actually has the thing that he's actually looking for. But again, I like it. Again, it feels like classic Dragon Ball. And speaking of classic Dragon Ball, there's this big scene where Goku and all of his friends travel to the second Demon Realm world where they actually discover the original planet Namek. And what I love about this sequence is while it is a little goofy that they do have to fight against a giant Kraken, it just feels so Dragon Ball, if you know what I mean. I mean, go back and look at all of the times that Goku has ran into some sort of weird monster or creature in the wilderness and ended up fighting against it. It just feels kind of classic. But this is where we get a really big lore drop. I mean, first and foremost, it is really cool that we actually get to see the original planet Namek. It pretty much looks exactly the way that you remember it from the original Namek saga, which makes sense because at one point in time, the Nameks originally did live here in the second Demon Realm, and they were forced to leave. And it makes sense that when they went to other planets, they would sort of terraform it to make it just like their own original home. So that's a nice detail that I really like. But the biggest lore bomb of this entire episode is that apparently in the past, the Demon Realm was sort of like the beginning of everything. There was no universe, there was no multiverse, it was simply just this planet of very distinctive demon-like people. And apparently they had an original Supreme Demon King who was actually kind of a good guy. We get a quick shot of him in a silhouetted form, and basically he reminds me a lot of Supreme King Abora, where basically he's just a big blue dude with giant horns. But this original Demon King actually commissioned this one Majin who goes by the name of Rymus to outright create the multiverse itself. And this brings up so many questions. I mean, first and foremost, who is Rymus? Why has no one ever mentioned this guy before? And why does he look kind of similar to Zeno from Dragon Ball Super? I mean, they're not exactly the same design or anything, but when you put them side by side, these characters look very similar to one another, to the point where you have to think that maybe this is how even Zeno was created. Maybe these characters are related. They even happen to be wearing clothes that are very similar to one another. But it's interesting to know that there was this one being in the past who basically created the entire Dragon Ball universe. And, you know, depending on how you feel about retcons is how you're really going to feel about this at the end of the day. But as I've said many times in the past, Dragon Ball really loves to retcon things, so I'm kind of just used to it at this point. But it's a pretty interesting revelation. Not only that, but we also get to learn that eventually Supreme King Abora and his son Dabora eventually became the true rulers of the Demon Realm, and that's when they started to lock things down a little bit. Not only for all of the other demon species which live there, but also for Supreme Kai's race, the Glind. Demon King Abora essentially forced Supreme Kai's race, the Glind, to actually leave the Demon Realm in the first place. Not only that, but all of the trees that they're born from pretty much have been destroyed, so he's basically the last of his race. I like learning a little bit more about the history of Supreme Kai's race and the fact that they had such friction with Demon King Abora and his son Dabora. It makes that scene where he sees him in the Majin Buu arc mean a lot more, because he was so terrified to see him because this guy was essentially responsible for his race no longer existing. But before our friends can learn a little bit more, they're suddenly approached by the geriatric Namek, Neva. And Neva is interesting, to say the least. I've said it many times in the past when they introduced this character that I can't quite get a read on him. I don't know if he's actually a good guy, if he's secretly going to end up being a bad guy. I mean, he did create the Dragon Balls of the Demon Realm and the Tamagamis themselves, but he seems to have a very specific reason for it, as when he meets up with Goku and his friends, that's when we get to learn a little bit more about the Namek race. So first and foremost, it seems like the Nameks just can't seem to catch a break. Whenever they're not having their planet constantly be attacked by threats, they're also basically being the bootlickers of the Demon Realm. Unfortunately, in the past, it seems like the Nameks were actually enslaved for the use of their magical and mystical powers. I also really love this conversation that Neva has with Piccolo, because we have to remember that Piccolo is fused with multiple Nameks at this point, so he actually knows a little bit about their history. And this leads to a couple of interesting moments, like the fact that Piccolo does actually mention his father, who goes by the name of Katats. Now, this is something that has actually briefly been brought up in the past before, but we've never really delved into it all that much. But it is interesting to see Piccolo actually converse with Neva, who apparently is some kind of legend, at least amongst the Namekian people. However, I do have to say that while I don't have a problem with retcons or anything, I do think it's absolute bullshit that Piccolo does not know how to speak the Namekian language, considering that he fused with Kami, and, well, we've known from the past that Kami can speak the Namekian language. Although his excuse is that he's lived on Earth for too long, I'm still gonna call bullshit. Like, I mean, even Nail is inside of him too. He has two very distinctive Nameks inside of him who have just suddenly forgot this language. It's ridiculous, but mostly it's just played for laughs. But getting back to Neva for a second, he's actually going to be pretty instrumental to this plot because, like a lot of the other Dragon Balls in the past, you need some sort of password in order to make your wish, and you have to do it in the Namekian language. So it looks like he's going to be traveling along with them. I guess it doesn't matter how many people they can shove into this ship, it's just the way it's going to be. But now that we've gotten all that lore stuff out of the way, let's talk about the best parts of these episodes. The action. We get two really awesome action scenes in this episode. We get Vegeta going up against Tamagami number 2, and we also get the introduction of Majin Duu. But before we get to Duu, let's talk about Vegeta for a second. Vegeta's first battle in the series has been a long time coming, and no, I'm not going to count when he went up against those other chumps in the other episode of Dragon Ball Daima. This is going to be the first time that he's actually had an opponent who's going to actually make him try. And his battle against Tamagami number 2, I'm just going to go ahead and say it, is phenomenal. It's the best action that I've seen from Dragon Ball Daima thus far, and a lot of that is mostly owed to the design of the second Tamagami himself, who seems to take on the elements of water. This is showed by the fact that he's not only surrounded by it, but he's also using a trident. He's basically the Tamagami of water, but his battle against Vegeta, my god, has some of the coolest action that I have seen from the series thus far. It is incredibly fast and fluid, and I have to say, might be one of my favorite fight scenes from all of Dragon Ball in general. despite the fact that yes, Vegeta is kind of losing this battle, which for some people is going to be disappointing, but come on guys, Vegeta's not gonna die, he's not gonna get hurt. This is a prequel series. There's practically no tension of anything bad happening to Vegeta. I mean, he hasn't even gone Super Saiyan yet, and the battle isn't even concluded in this episode. I only bring this up because I've seen that a lot of people have been severely disappointed that Vegeta is getting beaten up again. And yeah, it is kind of annoying that that always seems to end up happening to his character. I mean, really, if it were up to me, I'm still waiting for Vegeta to be like the true hero of an arc. I want him to finish off a final villain for once. I want him to actually prove that he is as strong as Goku. He's on equal footing with him, and this is sort of a perfect opportunity to do that, but I have a feeling they're not going to go in that direction. I will say, though, that Vegeta continues to have the absolute best character growth of any character in Dragon Ball. I mean, really look at his character from when he was introduced to where he is now. He's practically a different guy, and a lot of that is owed to all of the crazy adventures and battles that he's had over the course of the series. But his battle with this Tamagami, my god, chef's kiss, it looks freaking great. I love it. Despite the fact that, like I said, he's getting beaten and he even gets swallowed by a giant kraken. The episode even ends on a cliffhanger with him supposedly not being able to survive. Nothing's gonna happen. He's Vegeta. He's gonna be fine. He shows up later in Dragon Ball Super. We all know this. Speaking of Dragon Ball Super, by the way, I didn't mention this before, but I do love when they're going over Super Majin Rimus, they actually show all of the Supreme Kais from the multiverse, effectively connecting this to Dragon Ball Super, and for people who really like Super, I'm sure this made them very happy. I usually wouldn't bring this up, but sometimes the canacity of the Dragon Ball universe can be a little confusing for some viewers. But while this battle is going on, we have another fight that's going on where we get the introduction of Majin Duu. Yes, Rinsu and Marba create a brand new Majin, which is supposedly going to be even more powerful than Ku, and they really need to make that happen if they want to stand a chance, because Majin Ku, well, he's kind of a little bitch. But Majin Duu is definitely more traditional in terms of the Majin Buus that we've seen from the series. He definitely seems to take a lot of his inspiration from Super Buu and from Fat Buu. Not only that, but he's also more powerful considering that he consists of the remaining essence of the original Majin Buu. That and the fact that apparently there's this detail where when they combine him with a Cyberman, the deeper they bury it, the more powerful he's going to be. So basically, they just sort of gild the lily and try to make him as strong as possible. And his battle against the first Tamagami compared to Ku is completely different. That's not to say that Majin Duu just completely wrecks Tamagami number 1, but he actually manages to land a couple of hits and actually makes Tamagami number 1 actually try in the battle. And the way that he fights is also a lot more like the classic Majin Buu, with him bouncing around, being more unpredictable and crazy, outright just screaming all the time. Majin Duu is definitely bringing that classic Majin Buu feeling, and I really love it. Now, that's the thing though, I'm still not quite sure that he's going to be able to defeat this Tamagami. I still have a feeling that maybe Duu is going to be defeated, maybe just barely, and that's going to lead to Marba and Rinsu coming up with a either brand new Majin, or as the leaks that we've actually seen, they're probably just going to fuse him. And there's a number of different ways they could do that, whether that be Majin magic or those weird fusion bugs. We're just going to have to wait to see. But I do have to say that I do like the fact that we do have these two brand new Majin characters who basically act like brothers with one another. I mean, Ku is really funny when he interacts with Duu, treating him as like his little brother, giving him chocolate and, you know, basically cheering him on during the fight. It adds a little bit of levity to the absolute ridiculousness of these fights, and I think it's really great. So to wrap things up a little bit, I just want to say that I really liked both of these episodes a lot. I mean, yes, I am definitely an action anime fan, so these episodes gave me exactly what I wanted to see. While Majin Ku's battle with the first Tamagami was disappointing, it was animated very well, and I certainly enjoyed all of that. I especially loved all of the lore drops in this episode, as well as I honestly think that's been one of the best things about Dragon Ball Daima. A lot of people saw it as sort of like this filler-esque experiment, just something to tide us over before we get more Dragon Ball Super, and the fact that they're actually making such fundamental changes to the origins of the Dragon Ball world is pretty bold, and I think it's really brave and awesome. And I have to talk about episode 11. Vegeta's battle with the Tamagami, while it is short, is really animated well. I love the fighting style of the Tamagami, and I loved a lot of the things they did with Vegeta in this episode. Some of the camera movements that they choose are very different than some of the stuff that we've seen from some previous iterations of Dragon Ball, and I think it looked really great in this episode, just highlighting what's so unique all about it. I will say, however, that I'm still not super thrilled with the fact that all of the characters are kids. That's the only thing that kind of takes me out of the action scenes a little bit. I just wish they were in their adult forms. It really wouldn't even change all that much. They could have come up with some sort of other gimmick instead of actually turning them into children. Again, I know why they wanted to do this, because they wanted to evoke those feelings of the original Dragon Ball, but it comes at the cost of taking some of these action scenes, which are supposed to be really awesome looking, and making them look just a little bit goofier. I mean, that being said, Vegeta definitely brought the heat in this battle, and it really did feel like a big, over-the-top battle that you'd see from Dragon Ball, but just, man, I just wish they weren't kids. Overall, however, I have to say that I really am enjoying both of these episodes, and I will say that Daima just continues to get better with every single episode, especially considering we're now at the halfway point. Things are only going to pick up from here. There's a lot of promise for where this series is eventually going to go, and while I don't expect it to change too much more of the overall Dragon Ball universe, I didn't expect to do the things that it's actually doing so far. So who knows, I could be surprised by the end of it. What I will say is, I just cannot wait to see more of these battles unfold. I can't wait to see what's going to happen. I can't fully predict what's going to happen. I do hope that Vegeta is not going to lose his battle, and I hope he actually does win against the second Tamagami. I have a feeling he hasn't even really done anything yet. I mean, we're going to see him go Super Saiyan, and he's going to end up kicking this guy's ass. As for Ku and Doo, well, we'll just have to see. Otherwise, that's it. Those are my thoughts on these episodes. I really liked them. I don't mind the lore changes, and I'm a sucker for some really kick-ass action. But I really want to hear from you guys what you thought about both of these episodes. Ku's first battle, Doo's first battle, Vegeta versus the Tamagami, and of course, all of the lore drops. Are you guys liking it? Do you not like the retcons? What do you hope to see from the rest of Dragon Ball Daima? Do you have any predictions about what's going to happen in these upcoming battles or the future of the series? Let's talk about it in the comment section below. Thank you guys so much for watching this review. Again, I haven't had a lot of time to work on these videos. I mean, it is the holidays after all. I'm running around like a madman. But I still wanted to talk about these episodes because I'm just getting so much enjoyment from them. I also have some other videos planned for the coming year. There is a brand new Gundam anime, so you know I'm going to be talking about that. But really, I just wanted to wish you all a Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, Happy Hanukkah, whatever you're celebrating. I hope you have a fantastic holiday, spending it with your friends, your family, yourself, whatever makes you happy. Otherwise, thank you guys so much for watching this review. I'll see you all next time. And as always, stay dandy, baby.